Um, First things first, my sister Elizabeth, Ellie, has her 60th birthday tomorrow, and I'm going down to see her in London, and I just wanted to wish her happy birthday. Ellie is a minister of religion, a rabbi actually, and she didn't very much like the first of my new videos, Searching for a Reason. She said I looked very depressed, which took me aback a bit. And then I realised that actually there isn't a lot of difference in the way a person looks when they're looking very depressed and when they're looking very pensive, which is what actually I was. And in that video I was trying to convey a sense of aporia, in the Greek sense, of really not knowing an answer, really not being able to see a way forward between the two alternatives, between the idea that there's some ultimate intentional purpose and the idea that the universe is just brute contingent fact. But in the subsequent videos I sort of suggested, various ways that people might try to move around this, deal with this. That dilemma still remains. But something Ellie said was very interesting. She said, there is no ultimate reason, or we may not be able to find an ultimate reason, but there are reasons in life, which of course is true. So many of the things in life give meaning to our life. All the relationships that we form with other people, the duties and obligations, the feelings that we have towards others. And she quoted Levinas, the philosopher, Emmanuel Levinas, who is most well known for his concept of the other. And it was actually Jacques Derrida's essay on violence and metaphysics that brought Levinas to a wider sort of philosophical attention. Although he'd been working for years and years prior to that, he was very much in the shadow of other philosophers in the continental tradition, such as Heidegger. I've cooled off Levinas a bit, which isn't to say that that I've sort of gone off him completely, but I don't see that this goes anywhere. And I think that it shows an important difference in attitude between the sort of Levinasian thought that ethics is the highest thing, and metaphysics kind of follows from ethics, and the more traditional view that it's metaphysics, which is kind of the thing that seeks the ultimate. And that's what I've been trying to do, Ellie. I know this may sound a bit kind of crass, but I feel a bit like Neo in the Matrix. I just feel there's something wrong with the world. It doesn't add up. And in the first page of my book, Naive Metaphysics, I said brute contingency is an affront to reason. I'm obviously not the only philosopher to have thought this. The most famous example would be Hegel, and his claim that the real is the rational is the real. Contingency offends reason. There seems just something basically wrong about the idea that the universe is just a given fact. Well, okay, you can be offended by an idea, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to come up with a better idea. It may be the best idea. It may be that science really does have the last word on this. There's certainly no knockdown argument. In the 19th century, it was believed that there were knockdown arguments, and the most famous example would be, the philosopher who's meant the most to me would be F.H. Bradley, and his absolutely incredible book, appearance and reality, which is the one book I would take with me to a desert island. And Bradley, basically in his first 3 chapters, completely demolishes the world of perception and science. It can't be ultimately real because it depends on relations, and relations are self-contradictory. And when you pursue the line of thought, the only coherent conception of reality is the absolute, where all contradictions are resolved. Unfortunately, says Bradley, we can't know anything. We can't know anything about the absolute. He did describe his book as a skeptical examination of first principles, and he's simply, in his eyes, he's following the argument as far as it will go. It ends up with a conception of the absolute which is not a million miles from Hegel, although the big difference is, and this is something that appealed to certain existentialist philosophers like Gabriel Marcel, the substance of the absolute is experience. I mean, for Hegel, it was just pure concept. And that's a big difference. Bradley called Hegel's philosophy a ghostly ballet of bloodless categories. So but Bradley has an absolute. So science, is okay, it's fine. Everything that we discover about the world, I mean, the world is dense with fact. The world is incredibly and fully real, but it isn't the ultimate reality, because human thinking itself is to blame for the way the world is cut up into pieces and the pieces put into relations. And all this is provisional, and all this is destroys the ultimate coherence of reality. Reality has to be one. Bradley is a monist. And looking into myself, I don't know whether I see monistic tendencies or not. I'm not sure that that's the reason why I'm dissatisfied with the standard account, the scientific account. But it's an inspiration, I would just say that. That's the 19th century for you. And then along came Wittgenstein, the Tractatus, logical positivism, analytic philosophy, linguistic philosophy, and suddenly the very possibility of metaphysics seemed to be in doubt. And on the continent, philosophers like Sartre and Heidegger were doing phenomenological ontology, which presented itself as a kind of successor to metaphysics. Metaphysics was out, in the traditional way. Metaphysics was out. And I'm sad about that, because I want to do metaphysics. And my book, Naive Metaphysics, was an attempt to do metaphysics. It was an attempt to give an account of ultimate reality. And the claim I made there was that the one thing missing from the standard account, the realist account, that reality is some physical system, and that there are things that have developed within that physical system that have mind and consciousness, etc. The one thing missing is the place of I, the subject, the subject who is asking the question. I mean, everyone watching this video is a subject, and they are asking questions or whatever. But according to the standard account, we are all in the same boat. Everyone is equal. I am an other to others who are other to me. And even Levinas, who recognizes the kind of asymmetry between self and other, nevertheless sees this in a general sense. So I think my book was an original contribution to metaphysics. But the problem was I wasn't able to see any continuation after making the basic point that there are two worlds, identical in every respect except One is my world, and the other is the world, the subjective world and the objective world. I couldn't see where it led. So subsequently, I've gone back, looked at my premises and assumptions, looked at all the other philosophers in the tradition who've had something to say on this, and in my Metaphysics and Ultimate Reality video, I talked about Kant, Schopenhauer, Hegel, Wittgenstein, and Heidegger, of course. I'm not going to go over that ground again. I mean, Kant was the one who said that ultimate reality is ultimately unknowable, and in a kind of way he agrees with Bradley on that. We know there must be an ultimate reality, a noumenal world, or in Bradley's terms, the absolute, but we can't know anything about it. And that won't do. I mean, it's kind of boring to be told that. It doesn't lead anywhere. And I'm not looking for something that says, oh well, this is all unreal, and I'm really not sitting in this chair making a video, and there's really not a street outside, etc. Because that's boring too. Some story about a dream machine or whatever. I'm not interested in that. I believe in facts. I think the world is an incredible place, and it's, science is a fantastic thing and everything. But there's something wrong with the picture that you get when you think that all the sciences somehow added together are a complete picture of reality. They are not, because they miss out the subject, myself. It's that fact, and that fact alone, that raises a question. Because metaphysics is fundamentally and essentially about the question of my place in the scheme of things. Of course, the world is very often, and most of the time, a focus of our attention. We're interested in the way the world works, what it is. But there's always that extra question. How you relate it back to the subject. How you conceive of a subject. And so then the question arises, well, what would an answer be like? And this is what I asked in my video, Searching for a Reason. And I conducted, basically, it's a thought experiment. Imagine that you actually have the answer. I mean, you can, if you want something really sort of simple, imagine it like a metal box, and if you open the lid, there'll be something on the inside. Of course, Douglas Adams makes fun of this with his the story about 42, which I talked about in Metaphysics and Ultimate Reality. Let's suppose it's much more interesting than that. Maybe a book, or a CD or a DVD or something. Lots of information, and you read it all, and now kind of like the ultimate reason for everything. And the answer is, well, okay, but is that it? Is that all there is? Any account would ultimately just be more of the same. And so you can now see the attraction of wanting an ultimate that is unknowable. Because at least it kind of keeps the mystery of it. If you can't know it, then we can never be disappointed. But that's not an answer. Well, is there any other possibility? One thing that occurred to me would be this, that actually there is something that counts as understanding reality, the world, in a metaphysical way, which would involve going deeper and deeper and deeper and never getting to the end. So that you find a kind of an area infinite in extent. So that would be like a third way in between having the answer and not being able to know anything, which kind of would indefinitely postpone the disappointment, because it never, you never reach an end. Well, that's not really very satisfactory either. So it's a conundrum. I have no idea how that problem can be solved. However, it needn't stop one doing philosophy. I am absolutely dead certain that there are all sorts of angles that I haven't explored. And one of the reasons for doing these videos is to shake something loose, to get some new ideas. And all the stuff about, the previous two videos about possible worlds and time travel, etc., was an attempt to do that. I don't believe that the possible world solution is going to be adequate. And I have reasons, as I explained, why I don't want to believe that that's the truth about things. I don't have a better suggestion at the moment. But I'm going to keep looking, keep asking questions. And I have, I would say, the faith of the metaphysician that there are answers to be found if you're prepared to make the effort. I'll end things there. Bye.